Bryce Sanders steps into the bright fluorescent glow of a bustling pharmacy in suburban Chicago. He adjusts the collar of his plain gray polo shirt, a far cry from the tailored suits he usually wears. He's the founder and CEO of Sunrise Health Stores, a regional chain that prides itself on affordability and compassion. Yet rumors of poor staffing, increased workloads, and rising tensions at this particular location have reached his desk, prompting him to investigate in person, without the prestige of his title trailing behind him. He nods a casual greeting to a flustered employee behind the checkout counter, who seems too busy to notice he's anyone special. Bryce slips into the back room, where rows of shelves overflow with bottles of vitamins, cold medicines, and prescription drugs, waiting to be stocked. He grabs a cart labeled Overnight Restock and starts scanning the items to see where they belong. The routine is unfamiliar, but he's here to observe from the inside. Not long into his shift, a compact woman with curly brown hair bustles past him. Her name tag says Haley, and she wears an exhausted expression. She offers him a quick smile. "Hey," she says, slightly breathless. "You must be the new stalker. I'm Haley, cashier, and everything else around here, apparently." She sets a heavy box onto a counter. "You need any help figuring out the layout?" Bryce shakes his head, trying to appear humble. "I think I can manage, but thanks, I'm Bryce." He notices faint shadows under her eyes. "You doing okay? Looks like it's been a busy day." She exhales, shoulders sagging. "Busy doesn't begin to describe it. We've been short-staffed all month, and the store manager keeps pushing for higher sales. People come in with questions, prescriptions, you name it. There's hardly time to breathe." Before Bryce can respond, a stern voice interrupts them. "Haley, did you finish reconciling the register totals yet?" A tall, broad man in a crisp button-down stands in the doorway, arms crossed. His name tag reads, Ethan, store manager. His gaze shifts toward Bryce. "And who's this?" Haley gestures awkwardly. "This is Bryce, sir. He's the new stalker for the night shift." Ethan nods curtly, barely masking his impatience. "Great. Bryce, make sure you're clearing the overflow in aisle 4. We've got shipments backing up. I don't want customers tripping over boxes." Bryce forces a polite smile. "Understood. I'm on it." Ethan turns his attention back to Haley. "Those register numbers need to be done before close. I'm not staying late because someone can't finish on time." She stiffens, nodding meekly. "Yes, sir." Ethan walks off, leaving a tense energy behind him. Haley offers a regretful shrug. "Our manager's been under pressure to boost this store's performance. He can be intense." Then she hurries away to handle the register totals. Bryce wheels his cart into aisle 4, where a slew of unopened boxes lines the shelves, waiting to be sorted and stocked. He kneels down to open a box labeled Allergy Relief when a gentle voice calls his name from behind, surprising him because no one else should know him yet. He spins around to see an older man, probably late 50s, with a pharmacist's coat. The man's ID reads, Dr. Thompson, and though he looks kind, his face is etched with worry. "Bryce, correct?" Dr. Thompson glances at his cart, then smiles faintly. "I heard the manager mention a new hire. You mind stocking some of these prescriptions soon? Customers are waiting." He hands over a clipboard with item codes. Bryce nods. "Of course, I'll start after I finish these." Then, curious, he adds, "Anything else I should know about how things run here?" Dr. Thompson's expression darkens for a split second before he quickly composes himself. "It's just, the pace has been relentless. People needing more medication refills, complex insurance issues, and only one certified pharmacist on duty most shifts. Me." He sighs. "I've tried telling our manager we need another pharmacist, or at least a tech, but Ethan insists we manage with what we have." Bryce feels a flicker of anger at how his store might be making staff endure unreasonable conditions. "I see, thanks for letting me know," he says gently, hoping to encourage the pharmacist to share more later. He returns to his boxes, methodically emptying allergy meds, pain relievers, and cold syrups onto the shelves. Over the course of an hour, he observes a trickle of customers in the store, some with questions about dosages, some picking up prescriptions. Hailey rushes back and forth between checkout and a phone that won't stop ringing. Ethan patrols the aisles with a clipboard, occasionally barking orders or directing staff. Amid this, Bryce notes Dr. Thompson assisting customers with quiet warmth. A teenager with a skin rash. An elderly woman fretting about potential drug interactions. Each time, the pharmacist carefully explains, his eyes reflecting compassion. Something about the man's demeanor draws Bryce's respect, and he wonders if Dr. Thompson shoulders far more than he's letting on. As closing time nears, the front doors remain unlocked because the pharmacy is supposed to stay open an extra hour for late prescriptions. The overhead lights dim slightly, signaling to walk-in customers they're nearing the end of the day. Bryce finishes one set of boxes, then moves to the back storage area, searching for the next batch of over-the-counter products. He walks past Ethan's office where he hears a muffled argument. Stops cold. The tension in the manager's voice raises a red flag. Bryce catches snippets. "We have quotas to meet. I don't care if you're overwhelmed. Corporate needs results." Another voice speaks lower, trying to explain something, but Ethan cuts them off. Bryce exhales slowly, resisting the urge to storm in and reveal himself as CEO. He's not ready to blow his cover yet. Instead, he hurries to finish stocking so he can gather more insights. 15 minutes later, he notices Dr. Thompson shuffling toward a small break room near the back. The pharmacist seems unsteady on his feet, head bowed as though carrying a heavy burden. Concerned, Bryce quietly follows, pushing open the slightly ajar door. Inside, Dr. Thompson sinks into a chair, one hand pressed to his forehead. He doesn't notice Bryce at first. Then he looks up, startled. "Oh, Bryce. I'm sorry, I just needed a moment. It's been a long day." Bryce steps in, letting the door close. "You look really tired, sir. Are you okay?" Dr. Thompson attempts a reassuring smile that falls short. "Let's just say I haven't had a day off in 2 weeks. I'm the only full-time pharmacist here, and Ethan has been piling on shifts." He gazes at the break room clock, eyes flicking with worry. "We used to have 2 pharmacists, but the other transferred out. Now it's just me." Bryce feels a tug of sympathy. Why not request more help? Surely the company can't expect one person to handle it all. A shaky laugh escapes Dr. Thompson. "You'd think so, wouldn't you?" "I have requested it, multiple times in fact. The manager insists corporate rejected the budget. We never saw replacements hired." He lowers his voice, glancing at the door as though someone might listen in. "I suspect he's using that extra labor budget for something else. Or maybe he wants to look good by underrunning expenses. He keeps telling me to deal with it." Bryce's heart drops, anger flaring. He wonders if Ethan's behavior could be sabotaging the store's staff well-being for some short-term numbers gain. He tamps down the urge to reveal his identity, reminding himself that he needs more proof. Instead, he says, "That's rough. I'm sorry." Dr. Thompson rubs his temples, voice trembling slightly. "People don't realize how critical it is to avoid errors in a pharmacy. If I slip up, even once, a patient could be harmed. I lose sleep over it." His eyes glisten with exhaustion and something deeper. Bryce rests a hand on the man's shoulder, softly. "I can see how much you care about your patients. That matters. Maybe there's a way to fix this." Before Dr. Thompson can respond, Ethan's sharp voice echoes from outside. "Thompson, where are you? A customer's waiting for a prescription refill." The pharmacist winces, shoving himself to his feet. "I need to go," he says, offering Bryce a wan, apologetic look. Bryce stands there, emotions swirling. The door shuts, leaving him alone in the cramped break room, where fluorescent bulbs buzz overhead. He wonders if the chain's upper management, meaning himself, was truly kept in the dark, or if miscommunication from Ethan has hidden the staffing crisis. He clenches his fists, deciding it's time for a more direct look at Ethan's leadership. He returns to stocking shelves. Another hour passes. The store empties of customers aside from one last-minute shopper lingering in the over-the-counter aisle. Haley wraps up her cashier work, eyes drooping. Ethan patrols with the same stiff posture, occasionally giving Bryce a cursory glance. Then, as Bryce finishes placing a final row of cough syrups, he hears a low murmur of voices at the pharmacy counter. It's Dr. Thompson again, speaking in hushed tones to what appears to be a middle-aged man wearing a button-down shirt. The man looks anxious, jiggling his keys, glancing around. Bryce notices the store manager, Ethan, nearby, arms crossed, silently observing. Suddenly, the customer's voice rises enough for Bryce to catch a phrase. "But I'm out of refills and I can't afford the full cost. Isn't there anything you can do?" Dr. Thompson sighs, sympathy flickering on his face. "I'm sorry, sir. Legally, I can't refill without a new prescription, and the discount program is strictly regulated." The customer grumbles, frustration etched on his brow. Ethan steps forward. "Look, if you don't have insurance or a valid script, we can't help. We're not running a charity." His tone is colder than Bryce would expect, lacking even basic empathy. The man leaves, muttering under his breath, and Dr. Thompson's shoulders slump further. After the doors lock and the final overhead announcement signals the pharmacy is closed, Bryce notices Haley and Dr. Thompson cleaning up behind the counter. Ethan stands by, seemingly offering no help. Bryce decides to take a risk. He wheels his empty cart closer, pretending to check a supply list, but really listening in. He hears Ethan's low voice. "Thompson, I'm going to need you on double shifts next week. We have corporate audits coming, and I can't afford any mistakes. Don't even think about calling in sick." Dr. Thompson's voice trembles. "I can't keep doing these doubles. I haven't seen my family in days. My daughter's waiting for me." He trails off, evidently struggling to keep composure. Ethan dismisses this with a wave. "We all have personal problems. Suck it up." Bryce's heart drops at the sheer callousness. Tension coils in his chest, but he holds back, letting the scene unfold. Dr. Thompson looks close to breaking down. Haley, obviously overhearing, shoots Ethan a disapproving glare, but she says nothing, likely fearful for her job. Finally, Bryce can't remain silent. He steps up to the counter, clearing his throat. "Is there anything I can do to help, Mr. Manager?" he asks, voice carefully neutral. Ethan snorts, eyeing Bryce's casual polo. "Not unless you can fill prescriptions." "You're a stalker. Just do your job." Haley cringes while Dr. Thompson stares at his shoes, cheeks burning with humiliation. Bryce breathes slowly, debating if now is the moment to reveal himself. He decides to gather one last confirmation about the manager's motives. He follows Ethan to the front registers, under the pretense of needing instructions for the final restock. There, he sees the manager flipping through some store documents on a laptop. "Need something?" Ethan says without looking up. Bryce speaks cautiously. "I noticed Dr. Thompson seems really exhausted. Couldn't we bring in a second pharmacist so he's not doing doubles?" Ethan's head snaps up, annoyance flaring in his eyes. "You think I haven't asked corporate? They denied it. Besides, if Thompson is gone, who'll cover? Haley?" "Please." Bryce raises a brow, calmly pressing. "But if he's so overworked, it risks mistakes, right? That's a liability for the store?" Ethan scoffs. "Who do you think you are, telling me how to run this place? I'm in charge here. Thompson knows his job. He'll manage. And keep your nose out of what you don't understand." Bryce feels a spark of anger. He exhales through his nose, biting back a retort. "All right," he says evenly, stepping away. In truth, he's heard enough. He's witnessed the manager's disregard for staff well-being and Dr. Thompson's precarious state. Now he needs one more piece of personal insight from the pharmacist himself. Moments later, Bryce returns to the pharmacy area. Haley is gone, likely finishing her closing tasks, and Ethan is in the office. Dr. Thompson stands by a wall of prescription bins, labeling them for the morning shift. The store is eerily quiet, the overhead announcements silent, lights dim to half brightness. Bryce gently taps the pharmacist's shoulder. "Sorry to bother you," he whispers, "but you look like you could use a friend right now." Dr. Thompson turns, fatigue carving lines into his face. "I'm fine," he mumbles, though his voice wobbles. Bryce steps closer. "I overheard the conversation with Ethan. This workload." He hesitates, then decides to be direct. "Is that the only stress you're under?" Dr. Thompson's eyes fill with sudden tears. He tries to blink away. "I shouldn't be telling you this, but—" He cuts himself off, swallowing hard. Then, in a trembling confession, "A few weeks ago, I almost made a serious dispensing error. I caught it in time, but it terrified me. And I can't shake the fear that if I keep going like this, someday I won't catch it soon enough." Bryce's heart drops. Horror flares in his chest at the potential for harm. "Why didn't you speak up sooner?" His voice comes out ragged. "I did. Ethan told me to manage better. Said if I cause a problem with corporate, he'd fire me. I can't afford to lose my job. My wife's in remission from cancer. Her medical bills are piling up. I need the insurance, the paycheck." He wipes his eyes, cheeks burning with shame. "I feel like I'm failing everyone. My patients, my family." Bryce stands there, stunned. He stops cold. This is the last straw. Dr. Thompson's words confirm that the store manager's lack of empathy and refusal to staff properly have pushed a skilled pharmacist into a nightmare scenario. A single mistake could destroy not just the pharmacist's career, but also a patient's life. Breathing unsteadily, Bryce squeezes Dr. Thompson's shoulder. "Listen, you're not alone. I promise, something's going to change." He checks the clock. 10:30 p.m., well past normal closing hours. The store is nearly empty. Perfect timing. He gently encourages the pharmacist to stay put, then strides toward Ethan's office, heart pounding. Haley glances up from a final stack of receipts as Bryce passes. "Everything okay?" she whispers, sensing the tension. Bryce nods tightly. "It will be," he says, summoning his resolve. He finds Ethan behind his desk, flipping through next month's budget in a spreadsheet. The glare of the computer screen illuminates the manager's frown. Before Ethan can object, Bryce closes the office door, standing tall. "It's time." "Is there a problem, stock boy?" Ethan drawls, trying to sound authoritative. Bryce's eyes flash. "Yeah, I'd say there is. I'm Bryce Sanders, CEO of Sunrise Health Stores. I came undercover to see why so many complaints were popping up about this location." Ethan goes pale, clipboard slipping from his hand. You can't. I didn't," he stammers, eyes darting wildly. Bryce raises a hand, stopping any excuses. "I've watched you push your staff to the brink, ignoring legitimate cries for help. You belittle a dedicated pharmacist who's on the edge of making critical errors due to overwork. That alone is unacceptable. On top of that, you treat your employees like cogs in a machine instead of real people." Ethan tries to regain composure. "Look, corporate budgets have been tight. I've done my best to keep this store profitable." Bryce's voice sharpens. "Don't lie to me. According to Dr. Thompson, you never forwarded his requests for additional staffing. Instead, you threatened him with firing if he reported mistakes or asked for relief. We have a chain-wide policy about this. No single pharmacist should be handling double shifts indefinitely." The manager sputters. I was trying to hit sales targets, keep costs low. Corporate always wants growth." Bryce cuts him off. "We do want growth, but not at the expense of employee safety or patient health. You've crossed a line. Effective immediately, you're relieved of your duties. I'll deal with the paperwork, but you are no longer in charge here." Ethan gapes, looking as though he's about to protest. The silence stretches, thick with shock. Finally, he closes his laptop. "Fine," he mutters, but good luck finding someone who can handle this store's mess. He shoves past Bryce, exiting the office. Bryce lets out a shaky breath. The confrontation leaves adrenaline coursing through him. He steps out into the main aisle, spotting Haley near the counter, looking stunned. Dr. Thompson peeks from behind a display of cold medicine, eyes full of uncertainty. Bryce meets both their gazes. "Everyone," Bryce says, voice resonating through the quiet store, "I apologize for the turmoil. I founded Sunrise Health Stores to be a place where employees and customers both feel cared for. Clearly, something went very wrong here. Starting now, I'm putting a hold on normal operations until we bring in another pharmacist and reassign hours so no one is overworked. I'll personally oversee the changes." Haley's face brightens with relief. Dr. Thompson leans on the counter, legs trembling from the release of tension. Bryce walks over to him, lowering his voice. "We'll get you the help you need. You won't have to face this alone." Tears brim in the pharmacist's eyes, gratitude shining through. "Thank you," he whispers, voice thick with emotion. Bryce nods, offering a small smile. "If you need time off, we'll arrange it. Your family deserves you healthy. We'll handle staffing, even if I have to come in myself to restock or help. You have my word." He then turns to Haley. "And you? Thank you for holding this place together despite everything. I'd like to make you a lead cashier, with a pay bump. You've clearly proven you can handle responsibility under pressure. Does that sound fair?" Her mouth falls open in surprise. "Oh, yes, of course. Thank you so much." She glances at Dr. Thompson and grins through eyes brimming with relief. Bryce remembers to offer a gentle call to action, as if speaking to onlookers who might be following this story. "For anyone who's been watching or listening, stay with us. We're determined to fix this store, and I want you to see how we turn things around. Like, subscribe, or just drop by the pharmacy if you're curious. Our customers deserve a place where they feel safe, and our staff deserves a workplace where they feel valued." The overhead lights flicker slightly, reminding them it's well past closing. Dr. Thompson checks his watch, exhaling deeply. "I think we should all head home and rest," he says, managing a small laugh for the first time that night. Bryce nods, ushering everyone toward the exit. He makes a mental note to stay in town for the next week at least, working closely with the team, finding a new manager who actually respects the mission of Sunrise Health Stores. Haley gathers her purse, eyes shining with hope. Dr. Thompson flips off the pharmacy lights, a faint smile tugging at his lips. As Bryce locks the front door behind them, he feels a warm breeze drift across the empty parking lot. It's as if the night itself carries a whisper of renewed faith. He stands under the glowing sign of Sunrise Health, recalling Dr. Thompson's distressing confession. The near mistake, the looming fear. That must never happen again. He closes his eyes briefly, reminding himself that people's well-being is at stake every time a prescription is filled. This wasn't just about numbers or quotas. It was about real lives. He's relieved he caught the problem in time, before tragedy struck. He glances at Haley and Dr. Thompson, who look lighter now that Ethan's oppressive presence is gone. A few minutes later, they part ways. Dr. Thompson heads off to finally get some rest. Haley walks to her car with a proud stride. Bryce lingers under the store's awning, phone in hand. He calls his executive assistant, voice low in the hush of the suburban night. "Yeah, cancel my meetings for next week. I'll be here overseeing store operations," he says. "We need an interim manager ASAP, plus another pharmacist on rotation. Make it top priority." He ends the call, slipping the phone into his pocket. Tomorrow he'll step forward as the CEO openly, clarifying the plan to every employee who works here. He'll assure them no one will be forced into doubles without relief, that Dr. Thompson will get backup, and Haley's new role will be formalized. He takes a final glance at the neon sign above the door, the letters casting a gentle glow on the sidewalk. Sunrise Health. The name feels fitting, like a promise of morning after a dark night. Bryce breathes in the quiet, letting gratitude settle in. Yes, tonight was tense and draining, but also a chance to correct what had gone off track. He unlocks his car, sinking into the driver's seat. As he starts the engine, his thoughts drift to Dr. Thompson's pained expression when he admitted almost making a harmful error. Bryce vows never to let profit or convenience overshadow the core mission again. He'll address every store, reevaluating staffing, ensuring that compassion triumphs over short-sighted budget cuts. Pulling out of the parking lot, he feels a surge of hope. Change has begun. Starting with one distressed pharmacist's confession, but it will ripple through the entire company. It's a reminder of why he founded Sunrise Health in the first place. To help people, not drain them. If he has to go undercover at every branch to reinforce that truth, so be it. Tomorrow, a new day will dawn, bringing relief to those who've been stretched thin and restoring trust for every customer needing crucial medication. And in that silent commitment, Bryce finds the resolve to keep shining light on every corner of his organization until everyone feels the warmth of genuine care.